3,754 metres, it towers above the rest of the Southern Alps. As many as 200 climbers attempt the ascent every year. The majority don't make it. The most beautiful day can quickly become a raging storm, and even the most experienced climbers can be caught out. And so it was in 1982. Two young members of the Mount Cook Search and Rescue Team, out on a familiarisation climb, were caught in a sudden storm. So began the biggest alpine search the country had ever seen. The mountain ordeal was over, but life would never be the same. Neither fully appreciated what lay ahead.
What we were seeing was half a foot that was likely to be lost. To actually understand that you had to lose it, sort of 5.5 inches below the knee, that was probably one of the hardest things to understand.
It would be a long, hard road to recovery.
One of the best things was the registrar came in just before it, and I'd asked him for an honest opinion. He said, "Look, this is something that's going to take you years to get over. It's not something that you're going to be up and running around in 6 months. It's something that's going to take a lot longer, and you've got to be prepared for doing the hard yards." And that was the best advice I think I'd ever had.
In fact, it would be the best part of 20 years before Mark Inglis would once again set foot on Aoraki Mount Cook.
Really quite early on, I thought, well, let's look for something else.
Mark Joseph Inglis, first class honours in biochemistry.
I did my honours through the School of Medicine, and I ended up as a research scientist, as a scientific officer, working in medicine and haematology and leukemia, and that was, it's hugely satisfying.
That satisfaction lasted 5 years. Then it was time for another change, a new career, a new challenge as a winemaker in Marlborough.
Oh yeah, there's always the legless winemaker jokes. Yeah, occasionally been true as well, I can tell you.
Mountain climber, academic, scientist, winemaker, businessman, and now elite athlete. Specially built high-tech legs have allowed Mark to excel in his sport.
Excellent racing by Mark Inglis. Big crowd here to support him from the Kiwi camp. So double amputee Mark Inglis wins New Zealand's first medal at these 11th Paralympics. Silver medal in the 1K time trial. He really is an inspiration. And he gets the thrill of receiving his medal from Juan Antonio Samaranch, President of the International Olympic Committee.
Nothing holds Mark Inglis back. The 20-year wait is nearly over.
It was fantastic flying in that first time, knowing that I was going to go climbing, flying in with Charlie, just seeing the route, that was amazing. And stepping out of that chopper on plateau was just like coming home, it just feels so natural. Especially knowing that, you're going to climb in the next few days to get a sense and a feel of the mountain again. Everything that happened in the last 20 years, everything that happened in the last year, the Paralympics, the December climb, the family, everything. They say when you die, your life flashes in front of your eyes. But for me, my life flashed in front of my eyes in that 30 metres. It was one of the most magical things I've done. I was pretty tired on the top, but it was just totally overwhelmed, really.
There were two grown men crying on the summit of Mount Cook that day.
Wow, I have goosebumps just seeing that. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Mark Inglis.
"49 years ago, 49 years ago, a young 11-year-old boy went to high school. 49 years ago, that boy had a dream. Like every young boy in New Zealand, it was, to wear the black jersey, be it in rugby or in cricket. 49 years ago, there was an issue, because he was no good at either of them. but he had one of the most powerful things. Who saw the Evansons last night? Yeah. One gentleman stood up the front here, and they asked him to think of a word that started with M. Can you remember that word? That word was mentorship. And that's what that young boy 49 years ago had. He had a mentor. And that mentor, he was a mountaineer. The dream went from ducking a ball to standing on the roof of the world. The dream went to, wow, as they say, finding where attitude defines your altitude. 49 years ago, that boy was me, Mark Inglis. I'm standing here in front of you, not as an illusionist, not as a mentalist, not as an economist. I'm standing here in front of you, hopefully, as an opportunist. And that's what I believe we need. To get to 5 trillion, we're going to need a lot of opportunists. And so we are better to talk about opportunity than here in Mumbai. I spend a lot of time here. I work with companies about finding where the opportunity is, the challenge of change. And so a Mumbai journey to work I've found, well, it's pretty variable, really. It can have its obstacles and its challenges. Well, actually, just round the road is one of my favourite little streets. Chapel Street, Bandra. That for me is going to work in Mumbai. But I'd like to describe to you what it was like going to work when I was just 18 years old as a young search and rescue mountaineer at Mount Cook National Park. Going to work, well, it looked a wee bit more like this.
Mount Cook. At 3,754 metres, it towers above the rest of the Southern Alps. First climbed in 1894, it attracts adventurers from around the world, all keen to conquer the many hazardous routes that take them to the top of New Zealand's highest peak. As many as 200 climbers attempt the ascent every year. The majority don't make it. It's unforgiving. 60 climbers have died on its slopes.
Well, how do you like that as an office window, eh? Oh. Imagine being 18 years old and having that magic mix, that your sport, your job, your culture, all wrapped up into one. And then as an added bonus, I spent most of my time rescuing Australians. I finally found a use for them, eh? Oh, wow. It was back in 1982. 1982, I decided to go on a training climb with a new team member. We did the east ridge of Ayesha, Mount Cook. Beautiful climb. When you're up near the top, it's steep. There on the ice, when you're standing on those front points, you can look between your legs and see straight down 1.5 kilometres, 1,500 metres. Fantastic place. There was only one small hiccup, and that small hiccup that day was the weather. We thought we had a 24-hour window to do the climb, but in actual fact, when we poked our nose over the top of Ayesha, Mount Cook, we realised the weather report was 12 hours out. Who would have thought? The big storm coming across the Tasman Sea was roaring over the top of Aoraki Mount Cook. 100 kilometers per hour, 150. The wind in the mountains will kill you. Hypothermia. Or up there, blowing you straight off. You have to get out of the wind. And the only place to get out of the wind is a little crevasse right there. We made our way down on it, lying on our stomachs, crawling into the wind, into this little ice cave. And it was a very small ice cave. It was a wee tunnel that you crawled into, and there was a space about the same size as under your office desk. That's a small office, okay? Not the CEO's desk, all right? We're talking small here. You can't sit up, you can't lie down. But you're out of the wind. And that's the critical thing. You're out of the wind, you can survive. But it's New Zealand. It's okay. Because if you don't like the weather, you just wait 30 minutes and it's going to change. And it did. It got worse. After 24 hours, we'd tried crawling out. The wind drove us back in. Well, it wasn't 24 hours. We had the luck to crawl into that wee hole in the ice at the start of the longest spell of bad weather in New Zealand history. It wasn't 24 hours, it was 324 hours. Every day trying to get out until after 5 days, the frostbite in our feet meant we could go no further. 13 and a half days. Wow. What decisions would you make? We were privileged in that we had the ultimate mix. I was the person that rescued other people. I was in charge of search and rescue. And so I had the critical element, knowledge. But the other thing that we desperately needed was faith. Faith in our team. And that's what I had. For 13 and a half days, every one of those seconds, minutes, hours, I worried that one of my search and rescue team would get hurt or killed. But then, on the 29th of November, 1982, the weather cleared just for a matter of a few hours. A helicopter was able to come in, hover, lift us off the summit, which was lucky because the weather went bad 2 hours later for 19 days. Actually, when you lie in a little ice cave, it's pretty hard to imagine here, but you need to lie absolutely dead still. No sleeping bag, no extra clothes, you just lie dead still to conserve. You burn almost the same number of calories as a rider on the Tour de France. Well, we didn't have many calories. We had virtually no food. And so I went from 70 kgs to 39. Don't see that one advertised on Indian TV yet, eh? But we were rescued. We went away to hospital and we thought, we'll lose our toes. It's okay. It's an occupational hazard for a mountaineer. But we rapidly came to understand it was more than our toes. And after 4 weeks of lying in hospital, when we looked down our bed, that's what we saw. And that's when I came to understand that I had no life whatsoever until I got rid of those. The only challenge was the day that I got rid of them, well, it was Christmas Eve, 1982. I'm privileged. I work around the world on change. And I have my gold standard of change. It's when that surgeon came in and put 2 lines right there. Wheeled me into theatre and cut both legs off. The challenge is when you wake up the next day, Christmas Day, and you look down the bed and the sheets end halfway down. That's when I realised that, well, as Nazim said yesterday, you need to have some skin in the game. I had skin in the game. For me, I had to look forward to what the future held. And it was the understanding of, it's not what we think. So much of what we have heard over yesterday and today, it is how we think. That, ladies and gentlemen, that is not a double amputee mountaineer. That is a mountaineer who will never get frostbite in his feet again. Right? One less thing to worry about. That's a... It's not a double amputee skier. It's a skier that's never going to break his leg. Or if I do, it takes me about 2 hours to fix it. When you break yours, how long does it take? More than 2 hours. That's what's so important. But it's also the understanding that we need to innovate. You know, we saw that great example of the wheels on the little Mexican, the little Latin toy. But they never quite made it. And it took so long to make it to our rolly bin. It's the same here. For years, amputees on bikes, they used beautiful carbon fibre